Ladies and gents, welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. Today, my guest on the show is good buddy, Nick Dio. Nick is the creative director at Wallaco, really cool fitness apparel brand. He is also the director of business development at the Sasha Group at VaynerMedia. Nick is not even 30 years old. The guy is incredible. He inspires me every day. We go into his story from way back when to how he landed in front of Gary Vaynerchuk at VaynerMedia to launching a business with a couple of buddies in the world of fitness apparel. He's a gem. This is a good listen. Check him out, Nick Dio, right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am blessed to be sitting with a good friend of mine today who is the head of new biz at VaynerX and Sasha Group. Also incredible entrepreneur, very, very smart man, creative director at Wallaco, Nick the Man Dio.
Thanks so much for having me, brother.
Welcome. So Born or Made is a... It's essentially, I want to get your story. So
I've listened to every single episode. All
Okay.
right. So I understand the format. I'm actually going to propose a new format.
Ooh.
You're going to hear my story, and then you're going to tell me if I was born or made.
Wow.
Also, is there a sponsor on this episode?
There is.
What is it?
Athletic Greens.
I love Athletic Greens. No, I'm serious. There's people listening right now, and they heard you already plug it. But I have a packet in my back pocket. I literally take it every day.
So you know what's beautiful about that? And just to talk about Athletic Greens for a second, I have like a pretty strict policy with anybody that I endorse, right? Like I'm not, my main source of income does not come from branded content, right? However, Athletic Greens has been a product that I've used for years. Like I just, somebody told me about, actually, you know what? I heard about it on the Tim Ferriss podcast.
Interesting.
I heard about it on Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
I ordered it. I fell in love with it. And I've been taking it forever. And then because I was just like sort of organically posting about it because it's part of my shit, you know, I was connected with the crew over there.
I got my mom hooked right before Christmas, and my dad's so pissed at me. He's like, we've got this tub, every month it comes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's really cool how those things work out, right? Like
it is.
I believe in it. It's incredible, and they are definitely a partner on the podcast. But I like your flip flop of that. I think it's kind of fun to do that, and so I'm going to get into your story. Just quick for anybody who has never listened to the show, Born or Made's a podcast where I sit with guys and gals like Nick. And we talk about their story from as early as they can remember. And then I pose the question whether they believe they were born with an inherent ability to get to where they're at today, or if they were made over time through grit, grime, and hustle. It's been very, very even Steven.
Who was your favorite episode?
So far?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough question, man. You know, we've shot a bunch now.
Okay.
And so I don't think I have a favorite. I think that every single episode has beauty, right? And there's like I listened to the Lewis Howes episode this morning.
Okay.
And I got to tell you right now, like Lewis probably was the most, I did not anticipate his vulnerability on the show. Like I just did not anticipate it.
Wow.
And it was so powerful for me when I was listening to it this morning at the gym. I was like, I mean, it helped me being with him on it. And it also, when I listened to it again, I was like, holy shit, man, this guy really, really struck a chord with me. And I think, you know, whoever listens to it, whether they can relate to what he's talking about or not, because he gets very, very deep and very granular on his personal story, that a lot of people really shy away from in terms of talking about like the deepest, darkest secrets that actually fuck us up mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Like that is the thing, and that's what ultimately like I think brought his podcast to the top for me, because He just got really, really into it and dropped some serious gems. And even though he wasn't trying, you know what I mean? He just spoke his truth, and it was like, wow.
You know, I think that Lewis, I've never met him personally, been at the same events as him a couple times. He's got a larger-than-life personality, like you can feel him when he's in the room. But I think he's done a tremendous job of like really articulating his truth in a way that makes it approachable and accessible for the everyday human being. Sometimes we look at these, I would say, like accentuated versions of people's reality, and we're like, oh, we point to that. But he, I think, you know, in the way that he sat on a couch next to you and kind of broke down whatever it was that he was talking about in a way that probably just like really communicated to you in a way that just like really cuts through all the noise.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't actually able to get him at the couch. We did it over the phone, but
Even better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that we were able to get as far as we got, and it was literally a Zoom podcast was awesome, and so. You know, you got a hard act to follow, boy.
I'm pumped. I actually think
Gary. Well, also I'm
not even worried about. So Gary's my boss, right? Gary's been my boss for 7 years. I said I listened to all the episodes. I didn't listen to Gary's. I love him.
You didn't?
I love him with my whole heart, but I listen to so much of his stuff. My favorite episode was Chris. I think she's a gangster.
Chris is probably Chris.
If you're listening right now, you should turn off this podcast and go listen to Chris's because she is a gangster.
I remember so clearly, and I said it on the episode with her. Like when I was coming up, you know, the Meatball Shop was sort of like. The fact that the Meatball Shop did what it did was mind-boggling. Like, no, I couldn't believe it. My partner Daniel couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. We were cooking meatballs on Jay Leno, on Jimmy Fallon. It was nuts. Within the first year, it was like, holy shit. We got put. You know, we were on Today Show, Good Morning America, a number of times. Like, it was just wild. And I remember.
Can you find those clips on the internet still or no?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And I remember very clearly year 2 Meatball Shop, 8.5 years ago. We got invited to go out to Aspen and cook be like the feature at the last event, the last big event.
Yep.
And it was Meatball Shop. And it was Meatball Shop, and it was I forgot the name of the bar, but it was like a live music venue in Aspen, super old school famous spot, and there was an amazing cover band.
At the bottom or the top of the
bottom?
Okay, got it.
Amazing cover band that was playing everything from like all the hits from like the 80s. And
how old are you at the time?
29.
Okay.
And I remember Chris sort of kicked it off as you know, she was the big deal there.
She was around the show.
Run the show.
Yeah.
And I looked up at her, and I had only known her because my publicist is her husband.
Yep.
And so I looked up and I was like, I've never seen anybody own a room like there was 1,000 people in there, and she literally was so relaxed and so calm, cool, and collected, and she was giving like speaking from her heart, and everybody was engaged, and I was like, she's a boss. She was a boss, and and then I have her on my show, and we've obviously become friends over the years, but she's so humble, and she really made magic happen in my career and so many other people's career in my industry.
Yeah.
You know.
So I've got.
Can you introduce yourself for a second?
I will. I have two more quick
Okay.
things, right? So you're at this event, and had you already become like a little famous in terms of before that event in Aspen? Like you already got some airplay on television.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so you already started.
That was when that was in like
You're like
fifth gear.
full.
5th gear. That was 5th gear. Daniel and I were on cloud 9.
You were on fire at this
loving
point.
life.
I understand.
Life was good.
When I listened to you tell that story, it made me think of, I went to Aspen Food and Wine, and this actually dovetails into kind of my background and kind of what I do professionally, but I went to Aspen Food and Wine for Stella Artois. I was working as a creative that was doing live content capture at Food and Wine, and I got invited, just kind of like got slid a ticket to some famous chef named Jacques, 70th something birthday.
Jacques Torres.
Yeah, I don't know, some really famous chef.
Yeah.
And I just vividly remember, I'm like 23, 24 years old. I'm at they like they made me get on the last gondola up the mountain, right? Like I had like a t-shirt and jeans on. Everybody's like straight suits. And I get up there and I remember I'm like, we're all toasting a glass to this guy. And I'm like, I'm the kid from Jersey that grew up as like a beach rat and that I have almost like no place in being here. But in that moment, it really kind of shifted my perspective on being able to appreciate these moments that we have in life and how kind of defining they are in the trajectory of where we go next. So my backstory is, let's see, life didn't get super interesting for me until post-college, but I was the first kid in my family to go to a traditional 4-year university. I got kicked out on the second day, was able to kind of negotiate my way back into school. That's another story.
Why did you get kicked out?
I got caught smoking weed, and they had a zero tolerance policy. I was a dummy. Like I said, I was a kid. I was a beach rat from the Jersey Shore, but not like a juicehead Guido. Like I grew up lifeguarding on the beach. I was like, you like literally couldn't get me off the beach. And after college,
all winter long.
Yeah, I mean, but no, not to make too much fun. Like all the way up until November, and then in the wintertime, even still at nights, like you'd bring a girl to the beach and you'd watch the sunset. Like still, so that's really in my blood. Like love. Anytime there's a body of water, I've always got a swimsuit on me, and I'm going. But life started getting really interesting post-college. And I had tweeted at Gary, let's see, my sophomore year of college.
At Gary V.
Correct. And I said, I want to come and intern for you. And the agency at this time was in its infancy stage. It's like less than 20 people working there. And he said, we're only going to take interns that are never going back to school. And he tweeted me this, right? Guy with 1 million followers tweets me back this. So I screenshot the conversation, I save it. I go back to school because I'm the first kid in my family to go to a traditional 4-year university. My parents would have killed me had I left school to go move in New York City and work for this random internet guy. And I graduate and I pull up the tweet and I send it to Gary and he doesn't answer. And then I send it again, he doesn't answer, and I'm like, I gotta find my way in. And it wasn't gonna be through HR because there wasn't that much of a
Can I just stop you there for a second?
Please.
So you what inspired you initially to want to go intern for Gary?
Cool. I'm skipping class and I'm on Facebook. So if there's anybody that's listening to this that's below the age of like 24, Facebook was what TikTok is today, back 10 years ago, right? Not even. Yeah, 10 years ago. So I'm on Facebook and I'm watching videos, and one of his videos comes up, and I'm like, and I end up watching this like 24-minute long keynote about pursuing your passions and Smurfs, and I was kind of like, this guy's nuts, but I was intrigued. And then the next day, very coincidentally, I was at a FedEx Kinko's shipping something, and on the bookshelf with like all of the shitty books is this guy's book, like front and center. So I randomly pick it up. It was one of the only books I probably read cover to cover in school. It took me like less than a week. And that was like the impetus behind, I'm gonna reach out to this guy, and because I think the way in which he sees the world is the way in which I see the world.
So real quick, so we skipped over a lot, right? We didn't really talk much about your childhood.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about like your parents, your folks, you said you were a shitty student, you weren't really like into school, it wasn't exciting for you. You were very passionate about the beach.
Yep.
And so that was something that, did you ever see yourself like figuring out something in that genre?
So there's a saying in my town that a lot of people who left use, and it's called life is bigger than Bricktown. So I think that was always instilled in me, and despite that being the place of so much joy for me growing up, I always thought life was bigger than Bricktown.
Bricktown is the town you grew up in.
Bricktown's the town I grew up in. And
do a lot of people stay?
I mean, I don't know from like a statistical basis, but I would say like a lot of people migrate within a 50-mile square radius out of it.
Got it. Stay in Jersey.
Yes. I mean, we're Jersey people. So, and I still have like so much love for Jersey. Like I would, like people ask me, they're like, why do you work so hard? What are you doing? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And this might be skipping ahead, but, Gary asked me this question, and I was like, man, like, quite honestly, I wanna be able to buy a beach house at the Jersey Shore that like 15 people can post up at, family, and feel as comfortable as I did as a kid growing up at the Jersey Shore. Open door policy, food always in the fridge, like good energy, good music, all the toys in the world to have fun with, like that. Mm-hmm. And it's a very simple framework for like success, like in this city where everybody's trying to accomplish so much and be at the top of their game, to have that as my driving North Star, and of course want to accomplish far and beyond that, but that really has been kind of the physical manifestation of what I think success looks like.
So we'll get back to the story. I just want to touch on something. So you said, people, Gary, have asked you why you work so hard. Mm-hmm. Let's just dive into what that means, work so hard. Like, what does that actually mean? Because I know what it means for me. However, I question whether it's like I actually consider it work. Like, I don't think I'm ever not working.
Why do you care so much?
About that?
No. Like, that's really, if you were to reframe the question, it's like, just why do you care so much? Mm-hmm. You can't work that hard. Well,
more than that, though, I think there's a real misconception with hard work today. Like, I believe that hard work is completely guised by how many hours are you sitting at your desk, mm-hmm. right? Like, I don't think that's hard work, actually, because that could be meaningless shit, mm-hmm. right? Like, people could sit at their desk all day long and flip through Twitter, right? What does hard work to you mean?
Got it. So the only way for me to really contextualize that is through my experiences. So when I started, if we were to go back a little further, the reason why I skip over my childhood is because I think that a lot of people that, if somebody were to listen to this and understand my energy and my passion behind things, they would be able to self-identify. And there's nothing different than you growing up in New York City and me growing up at the Jersey Shore. There is a similar strain of DNA or mentality, mindset, however you want to package it, that I think is consistent in the people that you have on the show. Mm-hmm. So, I think when I was 16 years old and I wanted to get a car, my parents said, good luck, like, you're not going on our insurance. Like, that's, the path to me getting a car was saving up $10,000 because my parents wouldn't put me on their insurance, saving up another $6,000 from a kid that, wasn't given anything. So it was like working 3 different jobs as like a 16-year-old so that you could save up, and like, I think those lessons instilled something in me, mm-hmm. but in the same way that you were the guy that was running around with buckets of ice on his back, my version of that was working on Sundays because it was time and a half at ShopRite, working at the beach as a lifeguard, and then doing a shift as a caddy, and then working at the restaurant at night as a bartender or a server. Like, that
you wanted something.
Oh my God. And I think directionally, I didn't know exactly what it was. At that point, I just knew that in all of those examples,
you wanted something.
Correct. And it wasn't necessarily just the car, but I also in all of those examples thrived off of the team dynamic that I myself created within each of those ecosystems.
So I'm listening to you and I'm processing, but really what I just extrapolated from what you said, which I think is beautiful and sort of like kind of gets to the core of this question. You wanted something. It wasn't the car, it wasn't the shiny object that you were looking for at that moment, but there was something inside of, I know that there was, and always will be, most likely, something inside of me that wants something. Mm-hmm. And that something could be a better relationship with my wife, a place where I don't ever have to worry about my wife can choose whatever school my kid wants to go to. That could be a car, that could be opening a new business. So I think that bubbling of want is something that probably was with you.
And then is it want or is it need? Like, and I think in a lot of ways, there's this inherent need from me, because it's not just sheer want. We would redirect our attention every 5 seconds if it was just want. And maybe, we're guilty of that at some time, because we do, we do have so much energy for the things that we commit ourselves to. But what do I really need? And I think that's why when I get to that place of what does success look like, I go to a place of what do I actually need? And that's the way that I can visualize what I need. And that is an emotion, that is a physical place, that is security for family. And all of those things aren't the sexiest things to talk about. They're, I think that we hero, and there's nothing new about this narrative, but a New York Times bestseller, or a private jet, or a 12-day retreat where you work on your mindfulness. I think we hero kind of these things that seem like an elevated reality, but I mean I've got when I really think about what I'm working for and where I'm actually going, the visual, the physical manifestation is just this house on the beach in Jersey.
I like it.
Yeah.
I also think that the want need thing, the difference between you and John Doe is having the bubbling of the want, but the do part is what makes you, right? And I think that is such an important component, because I like to dig into the do, right? Dig into the do. I think digging into the do is trying to understand what made you and makes you want to do, because that is ultimately, I think a question that I get more than probably any other question, right, on social or wherever, how do you stay in shape, or how do you open up a restaurant, or what do you? And I think no one I don't think that there's no guidebook, right? It's just you fucking go.
Well, one is Google, and I think even just opening up Google and typing in the question is really
so true. It's so true. It's so true.
If you do that instead of talking about it, you're already taking a step in the right direction. And I think that's what you're talking about when you talk about do, is how does somebody physically know or take that first step in that direction? And what's fun about this is, am I the youngest guest on the history of the show? I'm going to really push this.
How old are you, 31?
29.
29? Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to really push this to Gen Z and beyond, because I think that when I shape my professional success up, I'm in so many ways I haven't even begun. There's so much failure still to be had. There's so much trial and tribulation. There's so much learning, and we're always all the time learning. And I completely understand that. But as a kid who just understood intuitively that life was bigger than Bricktown, to then go and tweet at Gary, to then go and get my first job out of college at VaynerMedia and become.
So tell us about that story.
Yep, sure. So after I found, if you go to my Instagram at Nick Dio, in the highlights section, there's a story about how I got my job at VaynerX, and it tells the entire thing in 15 slides, and it's fun because you just kind of fast tap through and read, but. I tweeted, I didn't get in. I tweeted, I didn't get in. I found the most engaged employee on Twitter. I screenshotted our conversation. I sent it to him. I said, please just direct me. I'm trying to apply for this job. And it was a photo intern position. It was the last internship of the summer. Not a classically trained photographer, but was a hobbyist. Dad put a camera in my hands when I was 13 years old. And a real camera, not some flimsy camera, a real camera. Taught me kind of the principles of photography. And I took an abroad portfolio that I had when I studied in Spain, and I doctored that up and kind of got my foot in the door through that, and then became pretty much the first staff photographer at VaynerX. And timing of this was so important, so massively important. I'm first 100 employees I'm first photographer. Social media is like in its nascent stages. Facebook just releases video. Like we just like all have to remember where the world was 7 years ago.
Crazy.
Like live wasn't a thing. Instagram stories didn't exist. Like none of these things existed. Twitter was just rolling out video for the first time as
Was
well.
Instagram even, had it launched?
It did, and it was around, but it was still so early. Like it was just pretty much all photos and captions. And for me, as a creative and thinking that the world is going in this direction, I just really doubled down at work. So I commuted like 2.5 hours each way from the Jersey Shore. I lived in a summer beach house with 14 other people. During the week, there was only 3 of us there. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it was Animal House. And I'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning to get on the 6:15 train to get into the city. I would hop on my skateboard, ride to the office, stay there until 6, jet home on the express train, and like sometimes jump in the ocean before the sun went down. It was my life for 8 months, and then I couch surfed. And my progression, though, professionally was I quickly realized that, and Gary realized this first, we're going to need to build out real production capabilities and resources to be able to service some of the biggest brands in the world, because they're going to start allocating a lot of those budgets towards social and digital and less towards television and print. Mm-hmm. So that was the thesis. He guessed. He was right. We built out the production team.
He's good at that.
He is. And all of a sudden, I was thrust into this career where I was producing and directing commercials, digital commercials, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, for some of the biggest brands in the world. And we talked briefly about these moments that are really trajectory changing. I was 17 years old, and a friend's uncle owned a production company. And he said, he hits me up on text message while I'm in a high school class. And he said, hey, my uncle's production company, one of the guys called out, and we need to drive a van from Spring Lake, which is a few towns over from me, up to New York City to shoot something for MTV. And MTV was also a big deal back in the day. And I stood up in the middle of my high school class, and I walked straight out the door. And the teacher was like, where are you going? And I was like, I gotta go. And I left. And I got in the car, I drove the gear to New York City, and within an hour, I'm on set with Nicki Minaj, and the creator of Beavis and Butthead is on Skype. Beavis and Butthead was a thing at one point. And, and we're shooting a promo for the VMAs. And I'm just absorbing everything and trying to make sure that somebody doesn't ask me how old I am or who I work for. And
you just snuck in pretty much.
Well, like I'm just trying to stay out of the way.
Yeah,
like they gave me the cosign. They're like, this kid's with us, like go plug in those cords and put some gaff tape down. And I'm just absorbing everything. And I remember it so vividly. The director on set that day, who's like, calling the shots. And I'm just looking at this guy and I'm like, I could do his fucking job. And I'm like 17 years old, clear as day. And what he's doing, he's clearly articulating himself in a way that the talent, whoever it is, whether it's Nicki Minaj or Mike Judge from Beavis and Butthead, can understand what he's asking. But those are two completely different people. Like the way in which he communicates to Nicki Minaj is not the same way he communicates to Mike Judge. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching him do this, and he's doing it decently well. And I'm like, I could do this guy's job. And that was kind of one of those trajectory changing moments where I immediately was like, I'm gonna go work in commercial production. And even though I went and studied marketing and advertising in college and I didn't, lean into those things, I eventually got back to that. And, it's the reason why I spent 3.5 years kind of building the commercial production team alongside of a few great people at VaynerX. And now it's, a 75-person department with a massive 50,000 square foot studio space where, we just produced 3 Super Bowl commercials.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. Of course, looking backwards is 2020, but That's kind of like the upfront of my life and career and how I got to this stage.
How did those commercials do?
Which ones?
What three did you do? You did Peanut...
Planters, Sabra, the hummus, and, oh man, I'm gonna get burned for this one. Can't think of the third one. Those are the two that I can remember right now.
And were you guys all stoked about them?
I mean, it's just a massive moment, I think, for the agency. And, you know, it's a massive moment because for a company that was responsible for creating tweets for, you know, Campbell's Soup to then go and to do 3 of the spots for the Super Bowl.
It's crazy.
And it's crazy in the scheme of like agency world and advertising. What's fun for me to realize is that the general public has no idea who creates and produces the commercial.
Right.
You know, like 99% of the world has no clue. And that's why it's so important that whatever you do, you're doing it for the right reasons.
You know, dude, I want to say that you've got enormous energy. Like you've got, and I was drawn to it from like the first time we met. Your energy is just like, I didn't know what you did. I don't even know where we met, but I remember when we met, I was like, that dude's got fucking great energy. And like, I believe, you know, you said like my sort of interpretation of success, and you sort of pointed out a few different things, and physical and, you know, like physical manifestations of what success could potentially look like, which I get. But for whatever reason, your energy is so good. You have such a great, like, you exude like positivity. And I don't know if it's because I have gone through some dirt in business, like I've really trudged some dirt, even recently. Like, I don't even think about like when I think of success, I literally think about waking up in the morning and just feeling good. That's truly what I think about, actually. Because I think, you know, and you also asked me like how, you know, we were talking about work, and you said, you know, how was that experience for you? You know, the one that you just went through. And my response is, like, I know initially, had I not grown as a human mentally and emotionally over the last few years, I probably would have reacted to my experience at work in a shitty way. However, I've spent a lot of time thinking about like life and what's it all really about. And I responded to my experience and appreciated every moment of it. And it hurt like hell, but like I just feel like you have something really unique and special, man. And like I know, and forgetting your age, right? You're a young guy, and like you're like, I haven't even started, and I'm here to tell you that like you have not even started, which is because I don't think I have either, right? Like we're 10 years apart. I can't even fucking believe that. But like you are an old soul, dude, and it's like it's apparent and it's obvious, and so you should just know that like what you say is real. I believe it.
I appreciate that. First, I got to break the kind of the dialogue between Michael and I because he's such a good interviewer. You are such a good interviewer.
Am I?
Yes. I listened, no, like it's in my notes. Like when I was listening to episodes, I was like, you have a real knack for redirecting the conversation in a very smart way. And
not according to Gary V's viewers on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean,
that was rough.
I don't know if anybody's prepared to interview Gary. It's ever. But I think the sentiment behind that is that I've always it might be in a lot of ways my superpower to be able to wake up after devastation the next day and almost have a clean slate. Like it could be fundamentally the biggest flaw that I have or my superpower. I don't know. But it's very, very difficult for me to go to sleep at night and I could be in the worst mood I've ever been in, and it's very difficult for me to wake up the next morning and feel the way I felt the night before.
Difficult or doesn't happen?
It's non-existent. Like in reality, it is non-existent. It is like I go to sleep at night and I wake up the next day and there's nothing inside of me that existed the night before if I was in a bad mood.
Is that intentional or is that something that you've always had?
I wish I could say that I controlled that, but it is completely like in my DNA. It's a part of who I am, and it's probably to like there's people in my life that are probably not pumped about that. You know, like there's family that are like we're going through stuff right now, and you know Nick's okay, or you know girlfriend like. You know, we got into a fight last night, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like popping around in the morning, and you're going running, and you're stoked on life again, and I'm like, shit.
I have such a similar thing. It's not that I have a very, very similar thing. Mm-hmm. I wake up in the morning 9.9% of the time pumped the fuck up, like ready. Yeah. And you're right. Like some people are just like. But one thing I will say, you mentioned girlfriend, and you know we're kind of going all over the place, but fuck it.
It's all cool. Good. Yep. Most viewed episode.
Don and I got married. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but this June will be 13 years of marriage. We got married when we were
That's incredible.
Yeah, we got married young.
I remember I've seen some of the old pictures of you guys, and I'm such a sap for that.
It's really funny. Some of them are absolutely terrible. Yeah. I'll post some of the TBTs after this episode just to show people how bad it was. But you know, we got married in a Protestant church, mm-hmm. and we got married in Denmark. My wife is Danish, so we decided to do it out there. And the minister, like, actually spent some real time with us, and was like, "There's one thing I'm going to tell you too." And literally, if you take nothing away from this day, the one thing that I would ask you to seriously, seriously appreciate is to make a pact and a promise to me and to yourselves that you will not go to bed angry with each other. And that means that if you're in a fight, you bury the hatchet, no matter how difficult it is, before you two pass out. And I could honestly say, we've been together, Don and I, for 15 years. We've been married 13. That piece of advice I would attribute to the success of our relationship. And I also would say that you can apply that and implement that component into every single, anywhere where communication needs to be had in your life. That philosophy of finishing the day with a handshake, a hug, or a high five, no matter what the fuck happened, has really changed the game. And it certainly does not happen in every area of my life, but in my marriage, that fucking piece.
So I love it because it requires you to be a bigger person, right? And that's like that selfless, egolessness is what's required, I believe, in a marriage. I wish, and I need to, that's the thing I probably need to work on the most, is that for me, because my brain resets when I fall asleep, I wake up the next day with no, and everybody else wakes up with, you know, some type of feeling or sentiment from the day before. So it's selfish of me not to do that.
So I would essentially task you with this now. Thinking
homework
going forward.
Love it.
Think about if it's at work, if it's at home, if it's in family, if it's whatever, you know, that uncomfortability of stepping up and saying, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, even if you know that, because who gives a shit if you're right or wrong? That piece is so powerful. For you, obviously, it's not the biggest deal because you wake up happy-go-lucky every day. But for the people around you, that sort of emotional hangover can be terrible, man. And, like, I know that because my wife does not wake up every day with the desire to, like, pop out of bed at 5:15, go have my pre-workout, get to the gym, bang it out for 2 hours, come home, hug and kiss my kids. Like, that's the shit that you know, like, people, like, people don't get annoyed with that.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
But that thing, that finishing the day or finishing the night with your loved ones, whatever, and just, like, if there is some drama and tension and you know, thick air, opening up the window and airing it out. Yeah. And be the bigger one to do it, because it's so, you know, a lot of people in your position have to communicate, right? Like, communication is what makes the world go round. Lack of communication shuts the door on shit.
Totally.
And so, anyway, that was it. You just said the girlfriend thing, and I was like, it's such a good thing to talk about because I don't think people talk about that enough.
I mean, I really understand and I really agree because it's, when we think about work, like that's the part of this process that, if I was to just lean completely into who I was or who I am and not acknowledge how my actions have a direct reaction for other people, it'd be completely selfish and self-absorbed. So it's work. I'll work on it. Awesome.
I love it.
I wanted to say that, given kind of the amazing people that I get to meet in New York City and all the circles that I kind of swim in, as somebody who, is working on a startup right now on the side and is a brand junkie and like loves being completely immersed in early stage businesses. And I become so really consumed by things that interest me in a lot of ways, whether it's even just, we're sustainability and clothing. Like I've just in the past 3 weeks, my world has kind of been open to that. And I've literally had 15 conversations with people about this topic that know far more than I do. But all of this to say that the accessibility that I've had in New York City to people like yourself and people that I respect and admire has helped me grow and at a rate probably much more rapid than if I were anywhere else in the world. And that my connection to New York City is so deep because of it. I genuinely feel like I could name like 3 people that are destined to be absolute stars that 99.999% of the world have never heard of before. And in categories that are completely unrelated and that nobody knows about. Like art or furniture art or, like hosting of things. And that for me is probably the thing that gives me the most energy in the day-to-day is like, I feel like in so many ways, in the same way that I watched that YouTube video or the Facebook video of Gary, 10 years ago, and I was like, there's something here. It's the same way that I've looked at some of the people that I've had conversations with. And I think that's, when we first met each other, you said something really specific, and I hang on to things. I love to like listen and consume. And I know you've said this a couple times since, but you've got to learn to love the hard and the hurt. Right? Like I grab onto these things, put them in my pockets, and then I am a living, breathing reflection of all of my experiences that have gotten me to this stage in life.
Dude, I mean, I am too like you, where I hear things and, and then of course you obviously walk through life and you bring out, in many cases, you bring out the best in yourself. The people that surround you, the people you surround yourself with, bring out the best in you, or the worst in you. But I believe in my heart of hearts that. And I spill the beans on the fucking show every time, so it just is what it is. But like, I believe that there are people that are born with a certain thing. I believe that. I believe that there are artists that are born with the ability to pick up a paintbrush and paint something beautiful.
Absolutely.
There are people like me that pick up a paintbrush and God, do I wish I could crush it.
Yep.
Zero talent there, right? Like, I can kind of sing. I'm not getting any Grammys. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in the world of, and what I think there's, it's 2 different categories in the world of sort of entrepreneurship and creativity. And I think there are the people like you and I that really understand people. Innately, I could walk into a room and I just know people well. And I know how to talk to people and feel confident talking to people, and you do the same. I mean, you are a master at it. I've watched you, and I
love it so much.
You're so good.
It really it just like, I went to 2 events last night that were so grossly different, and at each place I couldn't have felt more at home.
Yeah, you're so good at it.
Yeah.
You're so good at it. And that's a skill set that is like, I don't know if that's learned. I don't know if that's earned. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's tough to, I mean, I don't know either. There needs to be more data and research done on this. This is part of the data and research, by the way. This is all the qualitative data that they'll look at some point when they start to really figure this out. And they'll listen to all of these episodes back and they'll use it to help inform their decision making, like scientific, born or made. And but I don't know. I think actually I do know. I was 100% made, without a shadow of a doubt. I was absolutely made, and I can point back. Like I said, I'm a reflection of all of the experiences that I've had throughout my life that have gotten me to this stage today, and all of the ones that have yet to happen that I'm going to embark on as the moment I step out of this room.
So you're made.
Oh, without a doubt. And if you point to any part of my personality, my character, my makeup, flaws, or imperfections, or the things that are the most revered by people, I could point to somebody else that instilled in me something, and I am so incredibly humbled and grateful that I have the ability to reflect on my experiences in that way. Do I think that there's something deep, 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 deep down inside of me that, because I wake up every day the way that I wake up, gives me a leg up on everybody else? Absolutely.
Were you quiet as a kid?
No.
Did you have a lot of friends?
I wasn't class clown in high school. I was best dressed and maybe most dramatic. I don't know. But
what was your father like?
Dad is, he was, for me growing up, the person that I probably learned, I got the most from a business acumen perspective. I can very vividly remember, parents are divorced. When I go to Pops' place, we would drive in the car, and he was hustling, didn't go to college, climbed the ladder, worked for everything to get to where he is today. And I remember listening to him talk to people on the phone. He would take conference calls from the car for 2.5 hours.
Is he an entrepreneur?
No, he works for a privately held data and storage company, which is such an incredible deviation from anything he should have ever been. The fact that he is the head of channel sales for a privately held data and storage company is just if you looked at the deck of cards that he was dealt as a 20-year-old, you'd be there's no effing way that you're going to get to this place, man. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I would sit in the car and just listen to him communicate to people for a few hours, I couldn't talk, I would just listen, instilled in me how you communicate with people.
So you think that really impacted you?
Massively. Mm-hmm. I had no other choice. My head was against the glass. The only thing I knew was what the back of, you name a make and a model of a car, and I can tell you what their headlights look like.
Me too.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. And that's the only thing I remember.
Wow, man. It's so great. The beauty of this show is so great because it's been 50-50. I did not think you were going to say made.
100% made, without a doubt. Yeah.
Beautiful.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think, the only people that I've really asked to be on this show are people that I relate to. Not in a let's be friends way, in a way where I can kind of say, there's a really good chance that this person is going to think about this question, born or made, and actually believe their answer. Me personally, whenever I think of somebody for this thing, I think they're born. Only because I know I was born. Mm-hmm. I know I was born with it. I've been doing it forever, and I can't explain it. I can't explain why.
Because you can't explain it is the reason. If you could explain why you were born that way, I just don't think it would work. For me, I can specifically point to moments in my life where I was this had such a big impact on me, and that's why I introduced myself this way.
Yeah, it's
that's
great.
why every room I walk in, I repeat the person's name back to them 3 times because I learned that from a guy in Spain that would meet 40 new people a weekend. All of these things, I'm a complete reflection of all of my experiences and the people that have entered my life, good, bad, or indifferent.
I want to also big up Wallaco because
Appreciate that.
and I'll let you tell what Wallaco is, but you know, I'm not nearly the runner I was for many years, but for many years I was a long distance runner. And my biggest pet peeve of all time, probably could still be my biggest pet peeve of all time, is shit in my pockets when I'm running.
Yep.
Could be the biggest pet peeve. Anything, any movement, any jiggle, any noise, anything. And I don't remember who introduced me to Wallaco, but somebody did, and I was training for the marathon, and I fell in love, like passionately in love. And I was also not a tight wearer. Like this is like when
Tights, leggings, compression, whatever.
wasn't my thing.
Yep.
However, because, you know, like I would go to Europe in over the holidays or in the summer with my wife,
Yep.
and there'd be like a bunch of Europeans running around with tights,
Just
and
tights
no junk, no, they're junk, just
Yep.
you know, and that was like okay.
Yeah.
But I was just never a tight wearer. I put them on, I slip my stuff in the pockets because the pocket is compression, which
Yeah.
is just so good, and I fell in love. I love the product. I really love the product.
Massively appreciate it. And thanks for the plug. I think the best part for me, and I think all of us in any capacity, is if you're somebody that truly believes that you're multidimensional, you don't associate your sense of purpose or belonging with any one specific thing. So I am the creative director at Way of Life Athletic Company. I am the head of new business at the Sasha Group. I am the boyfriend of Aaron Falter. I am all of these things, but my identity is not wrapped up in any single one of them. So being the creative director of this brand for the last 3.5 years has literally been such building a brand from 0 to 1 million, like you know this, is one of the most challenging things you can do, especially when people aren't just like handing you money to do it. So then obsession over a plate of meatballs or a single pair of compression tights, like things that people are like, nope, like that ship sailed, we already did that. Like, no, true innovation and like a meticulous attention to detail is what separates the 0 to 1 million. And I think that whether or not we are competing with the biggest brands in the world someday, or we are just a pair of compression tights that lives in people that really care about one specific thing, is completely, I'm completely indifferent.
Tell us what Wallaco is real quick.
Yeah. So Way of Life Athletic Company is a gender-balanced active apparel brand rooted here in New York City. And for the same exact reason that you just described, that reaction that you had to being able to stay focused during the moments that are most important to your mental health sometimes, is the reason why we created a brand that would associate themselves with those moments.
Wow, dude, I never even actually thought to unpack it that way.
That's it.
What was really throwing me off is not the jingling keys. It's the lack of focus that I was getting on my actual performance because I was focusing on the sound.
Yep. And we actually, for anybody that's listening to this that lives in New York City, we host a weekly free workout. So we go to a different studio in the wintertime, and then in the summer, we do it on Pier 25 outside in Tribeca. Average attendance is 150 to 200, 250 people, 6 a.m. on Wednesdays. If you Google Wallaco Wednesday, you'll be able to sign up, but it's completely free. And I think that's one of the big things that's different about us as well, is it's really, I mean, it's not easy to make tangible goods, the things that we wear. It's not easy at all, but anybody can do it. The barrier to entry today has never been lower. I mean, like, look at every single brand that you see on Instagram today. You couldn't have accomplished this 20 years ago. It just wasn't possible.
What do you think is this distinguishing component of your brand?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, it's product is the only thing that matters. So attention to detail on even just a single product like that is incredibly important. And then the second thing is community.
community.
And it's not the thing that's going to make us one of the biggest brands in the world, but as we go from 1 to 10 million to 50 million, it'll be the thing that gets us there 10 times as fast. Because like I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning to go for a run with one person from the Wolaco community because she endlessly supports us. And when she reached out and she was like, hey, want to go to a Mile High class tomorrow? I was like, yep, I'll be there. So I just like that it's just different, you know? It's like we're not throwing influencer events where you come and take a photo with somebody. We're just living, breathing what we truly mean and care about. And there's no better way to do that than a physical manifestation of spending time with the people who really fuck with you.
Guys, if you do not follow Nick Dio and you want some incredible inspiration on a daily basis, the guy does the most incredible selfies and blah vlogs, just period, done. Every year he runs the marathon. He literally vlogs the whole fucking thing himself. It's amazing. He's a brilliant guy. And
You gonna run this year?
I am not, man. I'm actually, I think my marathon days
are over.
No, until I'm 45.
Cool.
45 is going to be my next marathon. I'm bodybuilding.
Great.
And I'm going to take a boxing fight in November.
I love it. I'll be in the audience.
Quick last few things.
Great.
I'd like to get a piece of advice from you that potentially isn't advice that you give to others, but a piece of advice that has been given to you that you tend to pass on to others.
Ooh, this is a fun one. I got one. And I didn't prepare for this. Even though I listened to the episodes, I didn't prepare for this. And I don't know why, but it's the first thing that's coming to mind, so I just want to pass it on. Like, there's no relation to anything that we've talked about and what's about to come out of my mouth right now.
Great.
A good best man speech. There's three ways, or there's three components to a great best man speech. The first one, don't ever have more than one drink before you make the speech. The second one, don't try to be funny. You can be funny the entire night. You can be funny at the bar, you can be funny on the dance floor, you can be funny anywhere you want throughout the entire course of the night. Be sincere, be honest, be vulnerable, be real. And the third one, as a best man, make sure that the speech is majority about the woman and the bride and not as much about the groom, because it is her day, and don't ever forget that. And I just think that that's like, you know, it was given to me by, and again, like, it's funny how all this stuff ties back, just a really well-liked guy at a country club that I worked at. And I was like his go-to server. So he would always ask for me when he came in. And we developed this kind of, you know, cool bond where he would say stuff like that to me.
I feel like you would give a fucking kick-ass best man speech.
I would dig pretty deep and spend a lot of time thinking
Have you ever
about it.
given one?
So I haven't. And I'm probably on the docket to give one pretty soon.
Cool.
So it's, you know, it's funny. I have a younger brother. And I've probably been writing his best man speech for like 3 years.
Imagine he doesn't ask you. Favorite podcast?
Right now, I like...
Or favorite few? Anything that you like?
Cool. Born or Made, for sure. And no, I'm serious. No BS there. I went running with Emily Abate. I love the Hurdle podcast. I listen to that on a pretty consistent basis. And then, you know, I really like Dax Shepard. Oh, so everybody listens to Rich Roll. If you don't know who Rich Roll is, he's the man. He's a legend. Just one of the more conscious human beings that I've ever heard, and he's so articulate. So he was like the first reason that I loved podcasts. Have you listened to his stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I really like Dax Shepard. I think he's smart. Are you familiar?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just think he's smart. I enjoy listening to his podcast.
So Dax Shepard, what's the name of his podcast?
Armchair Expert.
Armchair Expert.
And listen,
right.
like none of these are like very groundbreaking. Like these are all like top 20 podcasts.
No, but they're good. Look, you want to know why I started this podcast for me? Not just to start a podcast. I remember very clearly about a year and a half ago, I was driving with my wife down from the city, and finally, it was a moment where we like actually we were like, oh, you know, like we drive back down in the city almost every Sunday night.
Yep.
And you know, when you're married to somebody for 15 years, like, you know, the conversation is great. However, you kind of want to add some color to it. So I was like, hey, babe, the kids are asleep. Why don't we start listening to podcasts? I remember we started listening to How I Built This, and it was How I Built This with Steve Madden, and he delivered and there's something about that guy that I just think is super unique and interesting.
Totally.
He's an old school New York
guy.
Legend. But his story was so engaging. It grabbed, I was like, this is what I love, the stories. Like the stories, and what I literally went off on a tangent and I said, human beings love listening to stories. There's very few people amongst the human race that are great storytellers. So if you are a storyteller, and I believe, you know, storytelling is what I do through business, like fucking go out and do it and try to get people to tell you their stories, because people love sitting around the fire and listening to stories.
Totally. So, I'm so glad you said this. This is my thesis about podcasting and the entire podcasting space. This might be the most important thing I've said yet. In 5 years' time, we will go to Apple and Spotify to Google someone's name to hear them speak at the beginning of their career. Think about that. If you go to Apple Podcasts right now and you were to Google and you were to punch in the search bar Wiz Khalifa and go back to his first podcast that he ever did, like, and I don't know why I just said Wiz Khalifa, but like literally people that you grow to respect and admire. And that's why I'm so grateful for every time somebody asks me to be on a podcast, because I'm like, God, I'm so pumped that not only am I going to be able to look back on this, but like hopefully if this all plays out the way I think it's going to, that somebody will be able to hear my dumbass at the age of 29 on a couch talk about the way I thought the world was going to work. And like, we'll see if it works.
Dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So much love.
Yeah, right back at you.
Thank you. Ladies and gents, where can we find you?
Twitter these days. Nick, and my full last name is Diodato. Trying to get the new handle, Diodato. I'm spending a lot more time on Twitter, so that's where I want to go.
Okay.
And I want feedback. So if people have notes on this, I would love feedback. Anything at all.
I love you, bro. Thank you very much for joining
too.
the show. You're a made man, and I'm surprised.
Made man has a lot of connotations. That gets me pumped.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.